say to me, oh, I want to write, but I don't have any time, or I'm going to write this as soon as I have time. I'm shaking my head thinking, you're never going to write anything, buddy, because the truth is, nobody has time. You make it, or you don't have any. And I was talking to Graham Huffish this morning. He was saying that he had liked writing when he was younger and was really thinking that maybe he should go back to it, but as usual. And I said, look, Graham, you don't need time, you need will. I said, because I was talking to Rick Rankin about this last year, and he was saying he'd like to write something, but, and I said, look, have you got 10 minutes a day? I said, anybody can spare 10 minutes a day. You'll probably hold your breath for 10 minutes if you really tried. I said, but, take 10 minutes. I said, sit down and write something. You don't have to have any ideas in your head, just write something. Put words on paper, write about what you're looking at, write about what's in your head, write about what someone just said to you, but write for 10 minutes as a sustained effort. And and then stop. Okay, do it again the next day. Do it again the next day. Keep going. But at the end of the week, I guarantee you won't want to stop after 10 minutes. You will have ideas, and you will be going on and exploring them. And I said, you do this, keep writing 10 minutes a day, routinely, but every single day for a year, and you will have the rough draft of a reasonably good novel. I said, you don't do it, you won't have anything. So that's how it works. So, yeah. How long does it take after I've actually finished a novel before it's on the shelf? And what happens to it? Those are actually separate questions. But, basically what happens to it is, this is the ideal situation, is that it would go to my editors, my UK editor and my US editor, there are two of them, and both of them would read the book and come back to me with, questions, queries, suggestions, etc. Now, nobody ever tells me, take this out and you do that, etc. What they'll do is say, I think maybe you repeated this particular sequence because I see something that's very similar to it, on page such and such, and the same thing again here. And I say, oh, you're right, I did. Well, let's cut out that one, and I'll flesh this one to incorporate the other bits. Or they'll say, well, actually, my best comment was from my UK editor. He wrote back after Echo and the Bone, I think, and he said, congratulations, I think you've just done the literary equivalent of juggling 6 chainsaws. I said, thank you very much. But they'll say, I'm not sure that I understand why this person, said what they said here. Do you think you could clarify it? And I'll look at it and I'll say, he doesn't actually need to say that. Let's just throw it away. Or, yes, I can clarify it. And, occasionally they'll say, I don't know what it is about this character. He seems to kind of stick out more than he ought to. And I say, oh, well, that's because there should have been a foreshadowing scene that explained this about him before you saw him again. So I'll just stick that in over there and that will take care of it. So, they just tell me what they respond to. What they see is, either a potential problem or something that they really like. And then ideally, I would make those revisions, plus, whatever revisions I've been thinking of in my own head. Because as we get closer and closer, I will have put in all of the important things, but there will still be little bits here and there where I need a bridge or a half scene or something. And those parts I just make up. I don't wait for any kind of inspiration. I'm just thinking through. But then during the couple of weeks while the editors are reading it and responding, I will have been thinking about that, and I'll think, oh, I can improve that, or I know exactly what should happen here. So I'll make those small changes of my own, even if the editors don't think there's anything amiss. So we get it all revised, it then goes to the copy editor. Now this is the person who has the thankless task of reading it one word at a time. There's a lot of words in one of those books. This woman is a hero. And it is her job to look for, any typographical errors. I don't misspell words, but I do make typographical errors. Any questionable grammar. Sometimes, I use very good grammar, but sometimes characters don't use very good grammar. It just depends. And sometimes, she certainly knows when I'm using dialect and things like that and doesn't pick up on that. But sometimes there will be something in the surrounding narrative that's echoing what that character is saying, and they're using the same grammatical construction, and she's saying, do you want to use it this way, or should we put it back in the more standard speech? And sometimes it's one way and sometimes another. So basically, she just asks questions all the way through. So I will find her comments and questions 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 to a page for the whole manuscript. So answering the copy edit is by far the most tedious part of all this. Okay, then it goes back to the editors who read it again, and then I get the first pass galleys and I read it again. So we have at least 6 or 7 or 8 people reading it and rereading it and rereading it, and there will still be mistakes in it. There are in every single printed book. So that's basically what happens. And then after the first pass galleys, it will then go to press, essentially. Yeah, there's still a chance to catch things during the second pass if someone comes and says, oh my God, and we can still do a quick thing. All right, now ideally that process would take about 6 months. In practice, for the last 3 or 4 books, it's been taking 5 weeks. Yeah, well, they are kind of, well, see, they make this mistake. They assume that I actually know when I will finish a book, and, I've told them repeatedly, I have no idea, but they keep pushing because, they're used to scheduling books a year in advance, so they have all their things set up, and they're thinking, well, we want to schedule this book, it's a big important book, we need to round out the marketing and the co-op fees and everything else, we need to know when it's coming out. I'm sort of, well, I will tell you my very best, absolute, most honest estimate of when I think I will be finished with this book. I will be wrong. I am always wrong. It's always going to take longer than I think it will. It's always going to be longer than I think it is. I said, this. We've done this the last 3 books. This is going to happen, right? Yeah, okay. All right, this is my best guess. Next day, I open Amazon, and it's advertising this book with a for sale date. Yeah, so this is what leads to the Chinese fire drill of the 5/8 pub. But see, the thing is that I know this. I mean, they can pressure most of their other authors by saying, oh, if it's not in by now, we'll have to move the book, as though this is the worst thing that ever happened. And I'm sort of like, yeah, okay, move the book. But it's not good, The thing is, when you see a for sale date on Amazon, everybody, circles their calendars with that. And then, of course, the book isn't done, and because I told them it wasn't going to be done. And it shows up 3 months later, and they're, oh, Diana was late. I'm saying, no, they just guessed, and they guessed wrong. The book is done when I'm through writing it. It's basically what it comes down to. That said, you will get B's sometime next year.